Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today I have here with me Andrew Richardson, who's currently a pro fighter fighting out of Sacramento with Team Alpha Male, as well as he's been writing for MMA Mania for like the longest time. He's one of the veterans when it comes to covering mixed martial arts. And I'm just very happy to have Andrew Richardson share his story and how, how he got into MMA pretty much. So Andrew, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing good, man. It's good to be on here.
So how do you get started in MMA in general? I mean, I know you've been writing for MMA Mania ever since I think you said it was high school, right?
Yeah. So I actually started doing jujitsu in 2009. So almost, yeah, just about 10 years ago now, when I was 13. And from there, I started taking up boxing a few years later and had my first amateur fight like a month and a half after I graduated high school. So I've been in it for a while, but I started writing for Mania while I was a junior in high school. So when I was like 17, I got that gig, and I've just been doing both ever since.
So you started fighting when you were just out of high school, like as
Yeah,
a young kid,
Yeah, I
right?
graduated in what is it, June of 2014, and then I had my first fight in August of 2014. So I think I'm a few days away from my 5-year amateur MMA anniversary.
Gotcha. And right now, what is your professional record?
2-0 as a pro.
Wow, 2-0, man. Well, we'll go head up to 10-0 soon, right?
I'm sorry.
I said we're going to hit 10-0 soon, right?
Oh yeah, that's definitely the plan. That's always what like we are told to set as your goal. Like if you want the UFC or Bellator to sign you, like don't complain about not getting signed until you're 10-0. So that's the target.
That's true. That's true. And you just gotta rack up those fights, right?
Yeah.
So you're originally based. I mean, I know you're training with Team Alpha Male, one of the elite top teams out there in competitive MMA. But you're not originally from Sacramento, right?
No, I grew up in New Jersey, small town, maybe 15, 20 minutes from Philadelphia. And that's where I started doing jiu-jitsu. And then again, right after high school, I had that first amateur fight out there on the East Coast. And a month after that, I moved out here to Sacramento to train with Alpha Male.
So what made you take that decision?
I had thought about it. I knew I wanted to go somewhere to give MMA a real shot because the gyms I started in a jiu-jitsu gym and I got real lucky there. My jiu-jitsu gym was great, but it wasn't an MMA gym. And then I had a boxing coach, so I wasn't training in all aspects or in mixing all aspects like I knew I would have to really give myself a good shot at it. And I'm a smaller guy. I only weigh 140 some pounds, so I knew when we're talking best camps in the world, Alpha Male is one of the best for smaller guys. So it seemed like a good fit.
Gotcha. And you're enjoying the experience right now
Oh
at
yeah,
Team Alpha Male?
yeah, it's been great. Since I first came out there, I was 18-year-old kid, and everyone was always really welcoming. Like there was no like set aside practices that I couldn't get into or anything like that. Everyone's always been friendly and welcoming and happy to share technique, and it's been really good.
Right. So for those people that aren't too familiar with Team Alpha Male, they produce some of the top fighters. Like obviously Faber owns it, right?
Yep.
And then there's Cody that fights out of there. There's Josh. He does really well. Of course there's Song Yadong, who's just a beast. Do you train with any of these people, or do you have like your own smaller separate team when you go to training
No,
sessions?
I train, if not directly with them, alongside them in the same classes every day. Of of the guys you mentioned, I probably have worked with Faber the most. Worked with Cody a bit. I mentioned it to you via text, but Song is a big bantamweight. I don't spar with him too much. I've rolled with him a few times, but all our UFC guys I've worked with at one point or another, whether it's sparring or jiu-jitsu, wrestling, whatever.
Gotcha. So one thing is that like with Sonya Dong, like I can chat with him, right? Because
Hmm.
I can speak his language, right? I can speak Chinese.
Yeah, of course.
So the communication is so easy, And but what about like you? You know, like there's other really popular fighters that fights out of Team Alpha Male as well, such as Toru from Japan.
Mhm.
These people, I mean, they don't really speak English very well. So how do you guys usually coordinate and just like chat about like tips to improve your fights?
It's pretty funny. Like you said, there are a lot of different languages on the mat. We have the guys you mentioned, and then we always have guys in from Russia or different countries in Europe. So you do get a lot. But I feel like MMA and technique is pretty universal. That you can kind of just look and absorb a lot, even if the words don't come across. And then the guys who stay here for a while, more than just a few weeks at a time, like Taru, we always say Taru speaks his own version of English, where he's picked up enough that we always get what Taru's trying to say, even if if I try to say something to him, I might have to change how I phrase it. Might take an attempt or two, but we always get the point across, and it hasn't at all halted any progress, I don't think.
Gotcha. I mean, Toru is a funny guy, no doubt. For those
Funny
that
in
aren't
any
aware,
language.
yeah, I mean, for those that aren't aware of Taru's, like personal fun side, you guys should really check out his Instagram. He posts some pretty funny videos, and he's just an overall great guy, And then, of course, a very excellent and talented fighter as well, fighting out of Japan. He does really well. Is Taru usually, or like these people like Cody, these top stars, are they usually there at the gym every day grinding it out? Or are they like just like drop-ins? Like, how does that usually work?
For the most part, like the team alpha male kind of standard, what's expected is that regardless of whether you have a fight or not, you should be in the gym. Not as intensely, but consistently. So
Hmm.
I'd say for the most part, all of our name guys are there most of the time. It's a little different. Like, you can go on Instagram and see Emmett is in Europe right now celebrating his win. And stuff like that happens. Like
London.
Chad would go on hunting trips, or Taru will go back to Japan for periods of time. But in general, if they're in town, they're at the gym.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And Chad's an awesome guy as well. He actually does a lot of fishing, I think, right?
Yeah, hunting and fishing is Chad's wheelhouse.
Hey, hunting and fishing requires a lot of patience, man.
Oh yeah,
Well, that's what makes him a good fighter, right? You got to be able to read the movements and lay down those punches and strikes and everything. You got to be patient, right?
absolutely. But it also helps that Chad is like the quickest, strongest person I've ever seen.
He's actually pretty bulky too. He's
Yeah,
pretty bulky,
we
so I'm sure he eats pretty well too. And nutrition is like very important and first step to greatness when it comes to any type of athlete, but especially in MMA.
yeah, yeah.
So
MMA is so cardio intensive that your nutrition better be on point by the time you're fighting 3 or 5 5-minute rounds.
yeah, absolutely. And I actually made a video on nutrition for fighters a while back. But anyway, since we're already talking about nutrition, let's talk about your current diet since you're prepping for fights. How does it look like on a day-to-day basis?
So day to day, most of the time I do a practice in the morning, and if it's early in the morning, I'll eat like a protein bar or something. But when I get back for lunch, I generally either have chicken and vegetables, or I'll make myself a smoothie of some berries, protein powder, peanut butter, stuff like that. And then dinner's almost always chicken or steak and vegetables, some avocado or something thrown in. Uh, I got in trouble from my strength and conditioning coach. I lost weight too quickly at one point early in camp, so he told me to go eat more carbs. So I've been doing that. He doesn't want me to get too drawn out too early. But I lose weight pretty easy, so as long as I eat clean, I start shedding weight.
Right, exactly. And like the diet that you just mentioned is actually really similar to, like a lot of the fighters. I mean, just hearing your diet, it seems like it's very like ketogenic type of diet. But we've seen fighters adapt really well to that as well. Like McGregor, you know, he he's pretty ketogenic. I mean, he does have carbs and stuff, but it's more like sweet potatoes and like really healthy type of like whole grain toast and stuff like that. We TJ Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt, they all like pretty lower carbs and more of like veggies and higher protein as well as protein shakes and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Because that
absolutely.
actually,
It's a little
yeah,
bit of a switch because when you're in camp like where I'm at right now, 5 to 6 weeks away, you still want to be eating enough carbs that your body can handle the workouts because carbs are energy. So if you don't eat carbs and you try to do three
of course.
workouts, you're gonna hurt yourself. Um, so at this point, I should still be eating some carbs, like you said, healthy carbs like sweet potatoes or whole grain bread, or what have you. But then once you get closer to the fight and your workload starts to decrease and your weight becomes more important, that's when you cut out carbs.
Yeah, definitely. And that's actually the exact same thing that TJ Dillashaw said in the interview. He says that, he doesn't really eat too much carbs,
Mhm.
like, starchy carbs, like all the potatoes and other stuff. But he knows that he does need certain amount of carbs to keep his workouts going, to fuel his training sessions. So we hear a lot of fighters on that. And then of course, there are bigger guys like John Jones who always prefer, higher carb diets like beans, rice,
Mhm.
and burritos, a bunch of junk, right? But he's a great fighter too. So right now you're training. You're full time training right now,
Yeah,
or
my only job is my work at Mania, and for the most part, I just have to hit deadlines so I can kind of move my writing work around my training sessions. The only exception is on Saturdays when I have to write about the fights themselves. But yeah, I train 2 to 3 sessions a day, Monday through Saturday, and Sunday is my rest day.
so how do you usually break up your training? Like, do you have a certain day where you only do boxing, certain day where you only do grappling, or is it like a mix of a little bit everything every single day?
It's a mix. It's partially just based on like the Team Alpha Male has a morning practice every morning at 9:30 Monday through Friday, and I make all of those. So two of those are MMA, two of those are wrestling, and one of them is sparring. So I get to all of those, and then normally the rest is more variable. Like if I have strength and conditioning sessions or a mitt session with a one-on-one with a coach, or if I want to just make the jujitsu class, I kind of fit it in based on what I need for the week and like what I can't make based on those one-on-ones. Like if I have a mitt session that means I can't make jujitsu on Monday, then I'll go on Thursday.
Right. So I think one of the toughest things about training for professional fighter as a professional fighter is that it's very hard to stay motivated, right? Like you have to hit the gym every day. It's not something like, oh, I'm just gonna, wake up and sit on my couch and play a video game, right? It requires you to actually put in a lot of hard work and effort and physical movement. So what are some tips that you usually have for, especially for people who want to become fighters, on how to stay motivated?
I mean, I think that motivation has to kind of come from within. You have to be self motivated or you won't make it in this sport. And I think for me, I've always done a good job with just staying consistent and setting a routine. If you can do that, then even on the days where you don't want to go in, if it's your routine, you get up every morning at the same time and make the drive, you'll probably do it. And that's half the battle. And then besides that, I think for me, motivation, once I have a fight date, once I have like, okay, I'm 6 weeks or 8 weeks or 10 weeks, or even when it's longer than the fight camp, I think that's a really motivating factor. So if you can set a target where, okay, like I have to be serious for 8 straight weeks, I think that really helps in keeping your intensity high when you're at the gym and getting you to the gym more often.
Gotcha. I mean, I like how you mentioned that just going there and driving there is just half the battle, because when I used to train Muay Thai, I would drive to the gym and then sit in my car, look at my phone, and end up driving back home. So I mean, it's really hard to motivate yourself sometimes in tough situations.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, it's just once I really it is once I have that target in mind that there's no excuse. Like if I'm out of camp and I'm sore, I'm hurt, maybe I'll sleep in, which isn't the best thing, but isn't the worst thing. That's not when it's as important. It's really once you're in this target zone, now you have to stay super focused and maintain that focus for 8 weeks, and then make sure have a healthy mix of when you're out of camp, you're still training, you're not getting out of shape. and you're doing the right
Oh
thing.
yeah, you got to stay fit. You got to stay fit for sure. But so let's talk about MMA industry as a whole. Since you already been in this industry, you've been writing for MMA Mania ever since high school. You've been training jujitsu. I'm sure you've been following the scene. Um, One of the things about martial arts in general is that we don't really get enough attention that we deserve, right? It's not like football. It's not like video gaming, which is super popular right now with massive prize pools. It's not really something that's super popular. And why do you think it is like that?
I mean, I think on some level, fighting will always be a fringe sport. It is, more outright violent than most other forms of competition. And I think that will always turn off a certain percentage of people. And then I think aside from that, it's just exposure. Everyone grew up with football, whether you're a fan or not, you grew up with it as a factor in your life. But mixed martial arts isn't really the same. It's still relatively new, and I think the more generations of kids we have growing up seeing fights on TV, the more inherently popular it will become.
Right. So as of now, looking at the trends and everything, do you think that mixed martial arts will get more and more popular and more easily accepted by the general audience?
I think so. I think, there are ups and downs, but overall, I think in general, you see salaries for fighters have gone up compared to 5 or 10 years ago. I think that trend's going to continue, especially as like if you look at like the boxing paydays as a result of all the different streaming services and stuff. There's a lot of interest in content, and I think MMA is becoming a desired content. And as a result, I think that there's investment in the sport, and that will pay off.
I agree. I agree 100%. And the thing I feel about the industry is that there's just compared to other sports, there's just too like if you were to watch a football game, you can turn on the TV and you can watch a game most of the time, right? But for fighting, you actually have to pay for pay-per-view for almost every single fight out there. You have to even if you go to a bar, you have to pay an extra cover fee just to watch the game on fight night. So I think if there were more free options, it might help us grow a lot quicker. Do you
I
agree?
agree with that totally. I think that putting everything behind that ESPN Plus paywall, uh, it seems like a short-term, profit-focused plan. Uh, I don't think it'll help the sport grow as much, but it might help the fighters in it make more money. I think it's still too early to tell, but we'll see.
I agree, and I'm actually subscribed to ESPN Plus,
Me too.
so it's great. I don't think they have enough content, but I still think it's worth it to watch like the replays. Like right now, I can easily just watch a replay of Covington's fight.
Mhm.
So I think it's a great option. But moving forward, when is your next fight?
Hopefully, I can't say with 100% certainty, but I am hopefully fighting September 7th at a Global Knockout. It's a local show. They hold fights at the Jackson Rancheria Casino. It's a real good local show. Most of my teammates have fought there at one point or another. I'm just waiting on an opponent to say yes.
Everyone's scared of you, man. They don't want to fight you.
I've had bad luck in general with getting fights booked. I think at one point in my amateur career, when I was like 3-0, which isn't that special, it's not anything to be scared of. I had like 6 or 7 guys in a row turn me down over like a year period. So I've had bad luck, but I'm hoping that now that guys actually want to get paid in a pro fight, they'll be a little more motivated.
Maybe they're just scared of you. Stop being so humble. Well, anyway, so what do you do for fun normally? Because your schedule is so packed.
That's a good question. Right now, when I'm in camp, like I don't have the energy to go out and do too much. When I have free time, I'll read a book or play video games or whatever. Just hang out at my house. But outside of that, I'm a big music person. I like to go to concerts with my girlfriend. I collect records. We pretty much my life is my girlfriend and my cats and music and hanging out, and that's my out of fight life.
And what's your favorite video game?
I mean, of all time, it's the Elder Scrolls Oblivion. That's
Oh,
yeah.
MMO, right?
It's
Those are good.
single player, but yeah, RPG. Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah.
Mighty Mouse is a big gamer.
Yeah, I wish I was actually good at the games people like to watch people play. I was always the single player person, and those aren't the ones that draw all the eyes. Otherwise, I'd look into doing something like that.
Oh yeah, definitely not. The ones that draw in all the eyes or the ones that go online a lot. Like World of Warcraft
Yeah.
or Fortnite. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I never got good at
Great.
those. I'm like completely average at every shooter game at best, so I don't think I'm gonna get the $3 million Fortnite payday.
Oh yeah, that was intense. If people haven't read the news yet, you should really read the news on that. I think the guy was like 15 years old or
Yeah,
something
he's
like that.
some teenager. It's a good. Hey,
It's
I can't hate
crazy.
on it. If someone offered me 3 million to be good at that game, I would probably have committed to it.
Man, I would have dropped every interest I had in my life and just focus on that. Right? Well, thank you for taking the time to do this interview. For those people that do want to contact you, do want to learn more about you or Team Alpha Male, what's the best way for them to contact
You can always just hit me up on Instagram or Twitter. I'm pretty good about responding to messages that aren't super strange. I only ignore the ones that are really weird. Otherwise, I'm always down to talk about fights or my personal next fight or whatever else. So you can always find me on there. It's at Andy L Richardson because Andrew Richardson is too many characters and Andy Richardson's taken by someone else.
you? So should people call you Andy or Andrew?
Andrew's just fine. It's out of necessity.
Gotcha. And both of those handles are the same
Yes,
for
sir.
Instagram and Twitter?
Yep.
Gotcha. All right. Well, thank you for taking your time to do this interview, and good luck on your next fight. And talk to you soon,
Yeah, much
man.
appreciated.